Morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Friday, February 24th, 2017.
Commissioner Rivas, Repenning, James, Davis, and Jacinto are present. President James, we have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Angelica Samayo with the Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Craig Shaw, Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, Robert Potter, Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, Chris Johnson, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we did not receive any speaker cards under general public comment, nor do we have any commentary under the Neighborhood Council comment section, and we also did not receive any comment cards on any of the items.
Okay, thank you. We'll close general public comment as well as the Neighborhood Council category of commentary. On a housekeeping item, agenda item number 1 is to be continued, the tree removal on Hopevale Drive. We have a date for that, Mr. Campos?
Yes, we do. The date will be continued to Wednesday, March 1st, 2017.
So that's this coming Wednesday, March 1, 2017. Agenda item number 4, Bureaus of Sanitation and Contract Administration, contract award the West Valley and North Central Waste Sheds, recommending that the board approve and forward the report with transmittals number 1 through number 6 to the mayor and city council, with the request that the Board of Public Works be authorized to award and execute the following contracts with 1, City Fibers Incorporated for processing and marketing of residential recyclable materials from the West Valley Waste Shed, and 2nd, City Fibers Incorporated for processing and marketing of residential recyclable materials from the North Central Waste Shed, and secondly, award and execute the 2 contracts upon the mayor's authorization and city council's approval. Michael Lee on number 4.
Yes, good morning, Mr. President,
Good morning.
Commissioners, Bureau representatives, City Attorney, Executive Officer. This is Michael Lee, and I'm here to present for that item, number 4. And my presentation will be partially oral and then partially PowerPoint presentation. So hopefully I don't bore you. I'll try to be succinct and try to be precise. This board, these are for the recyclable materials collected from curbside recyclables, and then we deliver these recyclables to MRFs, called Material Recovery Facilities, where the recyclables are processed, sorted to different segregation of the commodities, baled, and shipped to local and end-user markets available in the globe. We have a total of 6 contracts for the Blue Bin program for the recyclables collected from residential houses, and we received approximately $2.7 million in fiscal year 15 and 17. Back in 2013, we had board authorized to distribute an RFP, request for proposal, for East Valley, Harbor, West Valley, and North Central waste sheds. And back in May 2016, we came to the board and board authorized to award and execute East Valley and Harbor contracts with the CRNR. And back then, in the board report, we explained to the board that we couldn't execute West Valley and North Central because of the unstable commodities market and also the global slowdown. So we told the board that we will come back when the market was actually better for better for recycling. So just to talk about a little bit of the West Valley and North Central waste sheds. In the West Valley waste shed, we received 3 proposals: City Fibers, West Rock, formerly Rock 10, and Potential Industries. Potential Industries, they have dropped out from the RFP process due to business model changes. And City Fiber ranked 1, and West Rock ranked 2, so we recommend City Fiber for West Valley waste shed. And going to North Central, we also received 3 proposals for North Central: City Fibers, City Fibers, Rainbow Environmental Services, and Bestway. Also, Bestway, they changed their business model after they submitted the proposal, they withdrew as well. So, and City Fiber ranked 1, and Rainbow Environmental Services ranked 2. So we also recommend City Fibers for North Central waste shed. Now I'd like to turn your attention to the presentation. I put this presentation together first and foremost, I would like to appreciate Commissioner Penning for giving me this opportunity to put together this presentation and talk about our recycling program in more depth. The purpose of the presentation is put together because recycling program, Blue Bin program, is known for revenue generating all this time since the inception of 1990. And now that this contractor, this vendor is asking for city to pay, so that's one reason. And second reason is I would like to address some of the factors. What are the factors that impacted the recycling market, recycling industries? And also understand why that we have implemented a sliding scale payment and also revenue structure in these two contracts. Why did we do that? And then also how these pricing schedule affected in the coming years with some projection that I put together. So first of all, I would like to give you a little bit of background information about the City of LA's solid resources collection services. In the city of Los Angeles, we service up to approximately 750,000 single-family and multifamily 4 units or less, covering the 6 collection waysheds as you see in the map: West Valley, East Valley, Western, North Central, South LA, and Harbor. The recycling program launched back in 1990 with a yellow basket. I don't know if you remember the yellow basket with the limited number of commodities we accepted. However, we proceeded and then we launched a single stream commingle Blue Bin recycling program in 1997, and we suddenly reached about 44% diversion. And I brag about this a lot to everybody that we are the #1 recycling program in the United States and accepts more recycling items than any other recycling program in the United States. And next slide. This slide just shows you a list of items that we collect and accept in the Blue Bin. There are many items: paper, plastic, metal, and also film plastic, polystyrene. Most of them are all recyclables as long as they are clean and empty. And you could just refer to those lists as you wish. And also the Blue Bin sticker. I'll attach a Blue Bin sticker, part of my presentation, to let you know that we put this on top of the Blue Bin as well as inside the Blue Bin, so to conveniently utilized by the residents so that we can capture what could be recovered from the MRF standpoint, so that we can generate revenue in the future. So this following slide will be the meat and potato from here on of my presentation. You've been hearing a lot in the past: record high unemployment rate, sharp drop of oil, development of digital media. What are all these? These are all little small factors that one way or another affected the recycling industries. Is because after the 2008 recession, people were more conscious that they don't want to spend money on the credit card, but they want to save money, pay off their debts. That just translated to less demand for consumable products, which means less products to manufacture, which means there is a less demand for recycling markets, which just translates that the demand for a lot of the products have diminished or they went away. And also one of the other factors is that homeowners, because there are many of them are penny savers, they claim their CRV themselves. And also the drop of the oil price is affecting the recycling markets because of the virgin resin of the plastics are actually in the same price range with recycled plastic resins. So, I mean, I would purchase virgin resin over the recycled resins. And I put lastly the local and international environmental regulations in there. Like for the international, we had a China green fence in 2013, which only allowed bales with the contamination up to 2%. Before the 2013, we sent everything they will accept and process. Their labor cost is slow, and they want to have more incoming feedstock for recycling industry in the China. So they put this regulation in there so that they could clean up their after the sort because of the contaminations. Now I'll get into the blue bin. What's in the blue bin? I calculated the percentage by weight based on fiscal year 15-16. In newspaper, we have 9%, cardboard 18%, mixed paper 25%, glass 8%, steel, tin, aluminum, scrap metal make up 3%, PET, HDPE, film, mixed plastic make up 7%. PET is a polyethylene tetraphthalate, which is just basically, the water bottles. And then HDPE is a high-density polyethylene, like detergent containers. Contamination make a good part of the graph. You have to understand that a lot of the contamination in here are actually recyclable. Just that organic waste, dirt, other construction debris had cross-contaminated a good recyclables in here. So MRFs state that they cannot recover to process and resell them. So we have contamination about 30% in there. In this graph, you see, can you go back? Sorry. In this graph, you see newspaper, cardboard, mixed paper consists of above 50%. In the recycling industry, we call this fibers. Fibers is a 50%, and they are the main source of income for recyclables. Now that they don't have much of CRV, they don't have much of plastics are with like lower than 5%, so their main sources of fibers. And because of the stream change because of the digital media, from the newspaper had gone down from 30% to below 10%. Demand for fibers had gone down so much. Now the MRFs are crying that we need some help in these bad economic times. That's why we had to come up with some kind of pricing, payment, revenue structure so that in the bad times, they get compensated. In the good times, we generate revenue. So using the history data of like decade long of history data and long negotiation process with the contractor, we came up with the following minimum floor value table on the next slide. I'll just focus on the West Valley contract table. So the left column, it says average market price of fibers, and the right column, it says minimum floor value dollar per ton. Average market price of fiber is basically average market price of newspaper, cardboard, and mixed paper. This is publicized from recycling markets, and anybody who's interested, they could get access to this. And minimum floor price of this value dollar per ton is a simple rate multiplier. So let's say if we deliver 1,000 tons, and we have an average market price fiber in the range of say 110, then you simply multiply 1,000 tons times the minimum floor rate of $9, which comes out to be $9,000. In this case, it has a parentheses, indicates that we have to pay them. So for the $1,000, when the average market price is about $130 per ton, then we multiply 1,000 by $16, and then contractor will have to pay us. So that's the example I have for you for the minimum floor value table. And going to the some interesting market trend of fibers. Next page, yes. This market trend of fibers, back in, let's say, around February is when we negotiated with this contract for West Valley and North Central. If you just follow the February of 2016, the market trend of fiber, market price was around a little bit less than $80. It was about $77. This was a real lowest of the lowest market for these fiber contents. So we had a hard time trying to negotiate with them, trying to be also presenting to them, we want some money when market recovers. So as you see, the market has been recovering since then. And now in February 2017, you could see the dot right above $120. If you go see the line of $120, you see it says West Valley processing cost neutral point. If the market stays around that level, we won't have to pay for anything for processing. And now we are at the time. And if you look at the $110 per ton level, we don't have to pay for North Central. There is a little gap between that because West Valley and North Central, they have a different handling practice of materials at their different sites. So in the West Valley, we included those additional expenses such as transporting the contamination from the facility to their landfill, which was about $6-7 more. So I want to show you how this market trend has played in our revenues and expenses in the next page. In this revenues and expenses in fiscal year from 2010 to 2018 and 2010 to 2016, there were no expenses that we had to pay. If you look at the table on the left, under the expense column, there's no expense that we had to pay. And 16 and 17, suddenly you have to pay $2.5 million. That was a really challenging for us to accept and acknowledge and try to get the information from other municipalities nationwide. Univocally, they said they have hard time. Either they break even or they have to pay for their processing. So in the net cost for the 16-17 projection, we have to pay about $1 million. However, from 17 and 18, if let's say the market price of the fiber stays within 110 to 120, can you go back to the slide? Yeah. Although right now we are at around $120 per ton level, we cannot be too optimistic that we'll keep going up. I mean, China already went through a restructuring phase of their labor force, their manufacturing, paper mills. So in my opinion, it might go up a little tick more, but it will probably stabilize at a certain point. So my projection is actually based on the price range between 110 and 120. So when I use that as a basis for the calculating of the projection for fiscal year 17-18, we will be on the plus side, about 400,000. But if it goes up even higher, we'll generate revenue in a bigger dollar amounts. And on the right side of the table, I just show you the bars. In the blue, there are the revenues. Red, of course, is the expense, and then the green lines are the net amounts that we have to either receive or pay to the contractor. And that concludes my presentation, and I would like to request the board to award and execute this contract with City Fibers for North Central and West Valley waste sheds.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Commissioner Repenning?
Thanks, Michael. I really appreciate the presentation. When we met to discuss the contracts, I thought that this was worth kind of a deeper dive because I think it's really important that we all have an awareness of the fact that our recycling programs are very much dependent on these external markets, and that obviously we want to continue to do as much recycling as possible, even if there are times when it doesn't always pencil out. But I really appreciated the thinking that you guys were doing in developing these contracts in terms of not locking us into a situation where just because the markets are one way right now that we're always going to have to pay, but rather you created a flexible contract so that depending on what's happening with the markets, we can adjust our agreement with the haulers. So I really just appreciated that you guys were, I think you said this was really the first of its kind in the country. And so it was something I wanted to highlight, as well as just, I think it's a really interesting topic personally.
Thank you.
So thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Penny. Commissioner Davis?
Yes, thank you, Mike, for this report. And I wanted to ask a question so that I could get some better understanding. In your earlier presentation, you talked about the minimum floor value table, and you talked about factors that determine whether or not we pay or whether or not we get paid. Could you just refresh my memory conceptually in terms of what are the factors that determine if we get paid versus factors that determine if we pay?
So basically, this minimum floor value table is concentrated on just the fibers, newspaper, mixed paper, cardboard. Fibers consist of a little bit over 50%, and they are the main source of income for these Murphy operators. So when the market is bad, meaning we'll just look at the graph of, can you go back like 3 slides? Yes, right there. This slide shows you the trend of average market price fibers. The factors such as digital market development, we're not going to be going back to reading hard copy newspaper. The newspaper will not be there. Right now, the price of this average fiber had gone up because of the cardboard. The people buying a lot of stuff online. Sure. And newspaper and mixed paper, because of this cardboard demand, sure, they need some kind of resources to make the cardboard, and they are coming from newspaper and mixed paper. So cardboard instance in February, it went all the way up to $145 per gross ton. Newspaper and mixed paper, they just crept up very little bit. So I'm thinking with that, it will stabilize at a certain point because people will kind of stabilize themselves, not expecting to see new shipment every night at home, So that is the one factor. And very small factor is the oil price. If the virgin resin goes above and then the recycled resin goes below, then people will tend to purchase recycled virgin plastic than recycled plastic than the virgin resin. That's like the examples. I have it in the factors.
Thank you.
Can I just?
Yes, sure.
So it depends on what people are putting in the bins, which changes. So like right now, people are using Amazon.com a lot to buy things. So there's a ton more cardboard than there used to be.
I got you.
But there's less newspaper because everyone's reading their news online. So, and there's fewer CRV, I think because of scavenge. Is that?
Yes.
Because of scavenging. So there's fewer bottles and cans. And so depending on what's in there and
So
what the value
when we
is.
have less than we pay, when the market is less of the resource,
So it depends on what's actually in the blue bin and the value of that, and then also the markets, because depending on what's happening in China, sometimes they value plastic and sometimes they don't.
Got it.
And we don't really control those markets. And so it's a combination of the two so that the situation fluctuates.
Got it.
And I also wanted to just take a minute to thank Bob Potter on this, since we have him here today at board, because I know this is your team.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. Some could say the situation's fluid on the contracts, even when we're dealing with the solids. All right. Commissioner Jacinto.
Thank you, President James. Bob and Michael, fascinating presentation from like a global perspective, the markets and how that affects us locally, to give us context of what's going on. I too appreciate the way that we've been flexible in protecting ourselves to the best extent possible. I mean, zero waste is sort of a rule of thumb that we're going to try to divert as much as we can. So we're kind of subject to the market regardless. It's important to understand that, though, and you protect us well, and we appreciate that. So, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacinto. I would only mention for the record, Commissioner Rivas, because I don't have a question. Go ahead.
I think it may have been answered already, but no, first, this was such a great presentation.
Thank you.
I really like the context that you gave. It really helped me understand the bigger picture. But I was looking at like the graph where you have the contents in the blue bin by percentage. Over half are the paper that you're saying, the fibers. But is like the low percentages of like the glass and container, other plastics, is that, I know someone mentioned maybe because of scavengers, but is there a way to increase that? Or you think that's the maximum, that percentage that will be in the blue bin? I mean, are people not recycling that?
I think it's just a trend. I mean, it's just a trend. I mean, people. I'm not too sure.
I think what's happening, a lot of it is that we had a large amount of CRV back when we first started the CRV program, that the residents used the blue bin to get rid of the plastic bottles, and we captured a lot out of it. But now people are seeing the value in doing recycling at home. So I don't think we've lost the recycling as a city. We just have lost it in the blue bin.
Okay.
So we've seen a drop in the glass and plastic and those because people are actually driving in. And schools and other things use it as a fundraiser, bring their bottles and cans. So I think as the bigger picture, recycling is still going on and we're still successful. It's just how we're not getting it as much as we did in the past.
In the blue bin.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. I would just mention for the record that the contracts both have the generally standard termination clauses that are of benefit to the city if necessary. And thank you, Mr. Jordan, for helping me find those. Really, it's just for the record because of the fluctuation. If there's too much of if something unforeseen happens and it becomes to the convenience of the city to terminate the contract, it can do so. Yes. Anything further? Is there a motion on agenda item number 4 by Commissioner Repenning, seconded by Commissioners Davis and Jacinto? Any objection? With that objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 4. Any issue sending number 4 forthwith? We'll send number 4 forthwith. Thank you, Commissioner Repenning, Mr. Potter, Mr. Lee. Agenda item number 5, specifications submitted for board adoption and authorization to advertise for the invitation of bids for the Los Angeles Adaptive Traffic Control System. That's the ATSAC Phase 2 project. Estimate $4,493,324. Bid receipt date April 5th, 2017. It says 3017. I don't think we're going to wait 1,000 years for this one. Mr. Herman, you have a card on number 5. Yes, sir. Number 5.
I understand why there's security on my back. This lady is interrupting my public comment. Will you please tell her to back off? I don't like people standing on my shoulder.
Mr. Herman, you're standing at the podium, and there's no one standing near you, sir.
It's all right. The lady over there was standing over my shoulder, so I don't appreciate security standing over my shoulder. For the record, it's only Friday, February 24th, and the specifications submitted by the board to adopt for the innovation of bids for all CDs, I oppose. I oppose because there has been no financial impact report to suggest why we must submit this adoption, first of all. Why? Ms. Heather left. She's not interested in hearing what the report's about. For Los Angeles Adaptive Traffic Control System, there was just a person killed recently in the news. A hit and run. Another victim of what? What City of LA is all about. What is it called? Necessity and convenience for alcohol. We don't need more control lights. We need more officers to patrol. We need more officers who can diligently do their jobs and not be hotheads and pull out their guns and wrestle with 14-year-old kids. That's what we need. Except the good thing about this, Mr. Davis, it happened in a white community for once. And it shows you that biased police exist everywhere. Not that I'm racial profiling anyone, but it usually happens to African Americans as a first victim when it comes to control. Second of all, it's fallen on the hands of Chief Charlie Beck, who should resign. He has no control of his officers, inadequate training, inadequate force, and temporarily there is no city charter that he follows policy on. Because if there was, we wouldn't have to talk about the so-called traffic control system. Otherwise, LAPD and this commission would have control of what happens in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Is there a second to my motion that we adopt agenda item number 5 forthwith? Commissioner Ascento, any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 5 forthwith. We've taken care of that in the housekeeping items. My apologies. Agenda item number 2, Office of Community Beautification. Contract amendment, tree procurement, planting, and record-keeping services related to the sidewalk repair program. Recommending that the board authorize the Office of Community Beautification to execute a contract amendment with the Los Angeles Conservation Corps in the amount of $45,000 for tree procurement, planting, and record-keeping services as part of the sidewalk repair program. Mr. Herman on number 2.
Willits versus Los Angeles. Barton versus Sacramento. Have you heard that before? Have you not learned your lessons when it comes to improving the quality of our life for infrastructure, for safe sidewalks, safe streets? Have you heard this over and over? But no, you haven't heard it from a disabled person with a visible or invisible disability, have you? You've never heard it from someone who has a strong grip on life that he wants to see much improvement for our sidewalk and streets. So the chump change of $45,000 will not improve the quality of life in community beautification, because Paul Roach needs maybe $100,000 to actually have a 1% impact on the issue and concern regarding all CDs on this item 2 for a contract amendment for services related to sidewalk repair programs. Get the fucking program together. Cohen versus California, 42 USC, 1983. I'm exercising my disgruntled argument to rebuttal anyone on our safe sidewalk on streets right now. Is there anyone here who wants to challenge Willits versus Los Angeles? Is there not one of you on this commission that dares to venture into this process? You've discriminated against people for how many years in the city of Los Angeles? Mainly the disabled, the physical disabled person who wanders about on our unsafe streets because of uplifted routes, uplifted sidewalks, and unsafe areas where there's transportation, particularly bus stops. Right up the street here, right in front of Ms. Hahn's office, the LA County Board of Supervisors, right across the street from the goddamn church. What's going on? You don't want people to be safe on our sidewalks? So give Paul Roach that $100,000 he deserves to get these people working.
Mr. Roach on number 2.
Good morning, Paul Roach, Director of the Office of Community Beautification. As mentioned by Kevin, or President James, we are requesting board authorization to amend an existing contract with the LA Conservation Corps for tree planting services. In this particular case, this amendment would cover tree plantings which would be needed in cases where trees have been removed during the sidewalk repair program, and replacement of trees would be required. The Board of Public Works has previously authorized OCB to enter into a contract agreement with community partners so that the City Plants program would manage and coordinate the tree planting efforts. The LA Conservation Corps contract amendment should be used for the procurement and the actual planting of the tree replacements. Once trees have been planted, the Bureau of Street Services would be responsible for the ongoing maintenance and care of the trees. Funding has already been transferred from the Sidewalk Repair Fund to the Board of Public Works Contractual Services account in the amount of $45,000, which shall provide for the procurement and planting of an estimated 60 trees. There are currently an estimated 250 locations in which tree plantings are required due to sidewalk repairs, so additional funding is being sought and would be required to continue the tree planting and tree replacement program. Thank you for your attention to this item, and board approval is respectfully requested.
Any questions? Mr. Roch, the estimated 60 trees, does estimated mean that it could be more?
It's possible there could be slightly more. The average cost for tree procurement and planting is about $750 per tree. If there are certain locations where maybe 10 or 15 trees would be planted fairly close together, there might be a little bit of a dip in the cost per tree just because they're all closely aligned within a certain location.
Thank you. That's what I thought that maybe there might be some costs if they're, I'll call it a volume,
a
volume
bit if
based,
they're all close together,
volume
right.
based savings if you've got some that are close together because of labor. Okay, Commissioner Jacinto.
Thank you. Paul, thank you for the report and the request. The trees that we now replant, are we capturing them in a GIS type of, how are we sort of geocoding them? Are they entered in a database? Obviously, we're record keeping, we're planning a portion of the access. But I just want to see how are they captured overall in terms of the grid.
Right.
There's new trees in there.
Let me ask, we do have Carlos Campero from the LA Conservation Corps. Do you know the answer to that, Carlos? Why don't you?
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Currently, we're working with a company called EcoLayers to actually do that, where we geotag the trees. We're able to photograph the tree on site after it's been planted and uploaded onto a server. And all of the necessary data, side of the sidewalk, parkway size, tree species, and again, geotag it. So then that's part of the tracking mechanism, and that's part of the contract.
Excellent. What's the name of that company again?
EcoLayers.
EcoLayers.
And they're also working with us, doing the same thing with our City Plants program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Rivas.
I just had a question about the data for Carlos, right? Was that
Carlos,
I'm sorry.
you're up.
No, you mentioned this. Is that data, will it be open data? Like, is it a data set that will be shared?
Yeah, it's a data set that would be,
it
would be, it's actually going to be entered by City Plants or community partners, but it's accessible to Bureau of Street Services and Urban Forestry Division. Urban Forestry Division, I think, would have the keys per se, and then they would make it available to whoever would want to see that information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further? Mr. Roch, thank you, sir. Commissioner Santos made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 2. Seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 2. Any issues sending it forthwith? We will send number 2 forthwith. Thank you, sir. Have a nice weekend. Thank you for being here this morning. Agenda item number 3, joint report, Bureau of Engineering, Bureau of Contract Administration, Council District 2. Requested contract award, Ventura Boulevard Sidewalk Improvement, recommending that the board declare Alameda Construction Services Incorporated the first low bidder to be the lowest responsible bidder and award Alameda a contract for the project for $1,263,941. And secondly, authorize myself or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute the contract after approval as to form has been obtained from the city attorney. Mr. Herman, on number 3, sir.
Morning. Once again, Willits versus Los Angeles, Barden versus Sacramento. These were issues involving sidewalks, ramps, curbs, the safety of pedestrians who had physical disabilities, and that's to incorporate people who are visitors, people with non-disabilities like yourselves that can walk and navigate our streets safely. Except at times you trip and slip and fall, don't you? Or you hit that little tiny bird that's sticking up on the sidewalk and you trip on it. You look stupid picking yourself up, trying to excuse yourself from not actually hitting the ground, huh? Well, if we're going to spend $1 million and award the Ventura Boulevard sidewalk, then I suggest around this area, around the area of City Hall, you spent $2 million to fix and improve our sidewalks immediately, because that was under the case of Willits versus Los Angeles, and you have $20 million to spend per year to fix our streets for the $1.3 billion that some douchebag named Paul Krikorian had to pay out in order to improve our sidewalk and streets, instead of delegating and mediation to pay. And now you're going to pay for it. Because each time I come in here, I'm going to bring in a case where I'm impacted by a sidewalk, a ramp, a curb. Fix our goddamn streets. And as a reminder, under the preamble, public commission boards, councils, and other legislative bodies of local government and agencies exist as aids in the conduct of the people's business. The people's business does not yield their sovereignty to the bodies of any legislative body to serve them. No. The people insist on remaining informed to retain control of the legislative bodies and make decisions on our behalf.
Thank you,
Barden
Mr. Herman.
versus Sacramento,
On
Willits
number
versus
three,
Los
Mr.
Angeles.
Mr. Munger on number 3. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. My name is Ramnik Mangra. I'm with Bureau of Engineering Street Program. The Ventura Boulevard Sidewalk Improvement Project is a design-build project. And it will improve sidewalk at various locations. It's about 8 locations that we are designing. It will be designed for. It's in 2 different milestones. First milestone is that subsequent to the NTP, within 2 weeks, 3 of the locations they're going to start construction. 3 of the locations of the sidewalk where they're going to start construction. Meanwhile, they're going to be doing design of the remaining of the sidewalks, which requires curb ramps and retaining walls, etc. We received 3 bids on November 30th, 2016. City engineer's estimate was $1,041,920. The lowest bidders, Alameda Construction, their bid was $1,263,941, which was 21.31% higher than the city engineer's estimate. And we think it's because this is a design-build project rather than a project that is already designed and then they have complete scope. This is their somewhat contingency that they think they don't have all the certainty as far as what they're bidding for until after they design it. So when we advertised, the MBE we required was 4%, WB 2%, SB 25%, EB 8%, and 3% DVB, whereas contractor pledged MB 26.58%, WB 0%, SB 22.63%, EB 1.19%, DVB 1.19%, and 0 OBE. Mandatory subcontractor minimum requirement was 25%, whereas contractor pledged 28.44%. Alameda Construction Company is certified LBE as part of the local business preference program. Alameda has not been awarded any contract by the board in the last 5 years, so they don't have previous experience. However, the staff recommends that the board declare Alameda first lowest bidder to be the lowest responsive and responsible bidder and award the Alameda contractor this project.
Thank you. Commissioner Jacinto.
Thank you, President James. Ramnik, thank you for the report and the request. I just had a question regarding the scope of work. That there are new trees that are going to be planted?
Yes.
Excellent. So there's new trees. And second, this Ventura Cahuenga Special Trust Fund, is that part of our Public Works Trust Fund, or can you tell a little bit more about that trust fund?
No, it is basically part of the council-approved ordinance. We're creating a Ventura Cahuenga Boulevard specific plan. So to mitigate the traffic issues and things like that, so the ordinance was passed to make sure that we levy the developers additional fee, and that fee is with the trust fund, and eventually they can decide what and where they're going to want to spend. And so their plan review board recommended these improvements.
Excellent. Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you. Anything further on number 4? I'm just happy to see this going forward there. So we appreciate the work on it. I'm sorry, we're on number 3. Well, number 4 I was happy about as well. But I'm happy about number 3, too.
Thank you.
Commissioner Asentos made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 3, seconded by Commissioner Rivas. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 3. Any issue sending number 3 forthwith? We'll send number 3 forthwith. Thank you, sir. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Is there a second to my motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the meeting of Monday, February 6th, 2017 by Commissioner Davis? Any objection? Without objection, we will approve those meeting minutes. Mr. Campos, have we cleared the desk?
Yes, you have.
Okay, then we are adjourned, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Thank you.